Well, as you can tell, I've come back to modern civilization today. I'm back in Tintwistle, and I'm back where I finished with Casa on Wednesday. We're just leaving Pixies, cross the road, and we're going to walk past a delightful shed. That is Tintwistle Parish Council. I'm with Billy Wardle, who is Tintwistle local. How do you describe yourself, Billy?
Well, after 20 years here, I wouldn't. I'd still describe myself as a bit of an outsider, to be honest.
Do you know what? There's a running theme about that, I think.
I think it takes 30 before you're accepted.
I'm never going to meet an actual local in the whole of this 28 days.
Well, they won't talk to you. No, I'm only kidding.
Today we're walking through Tintwistle. We're going to walk from Pixies to a place called, I guess it's Ebenezer Memorial Garden. What is it officially called? It's on the old lane.
I don't know. It's opposite Ebenezer Chapel.
Which a lot of people won't have heard of.
Yeah, that's the old Wesleyan chapel, which I think was connected to the kind of village that sprung up at Rhodeswood when they were building the resis.
Yeah.
And I think they built the chapel so that those guys could have somewhere to come and worship. The place where I live was built by Christ Church, the old school in front of the church there. And that was built, I think it's 1841, and
Yeah.
I think the church was built about 1837, and it was built for the poor kids of the village, the mill workers' children and that, and it was somewhere for them to send the kids to school. I've been there about 20 years, and it stopped being a school about 22, 23 years ago, and I bought it off the church and renovated it, and I've been there ever since.
You've done an amazing job. I mean, it had a headmaster's house as well, didn't it?
Yeah,
but the church, I think a lot of people will drive past this on the Woodhead Pass. It's very prominent, isn't it?
Yeah,
when you're down at
absolutely,
Bottoms Reservoir, you can see the church up on the top.
Yeah, you can see it from just about everywhere, to be honest. All around the valley, if you're up on the tops, you can usually get a glimpse of it. Unfortunately, these days there's only a service every 3 weeks there now, because they have a shared vicar.
So shared with Hollingworth.
With Hollingworth, yeah. So the bells don't wake me up every Sunday morning anymore with a hangover.
I was going to say, actually, one of the things I've noticed when I've been out walking is sometimes I hear bells, and I'm sure they're coming from Tintwistle way.
Well,
but I can't work out, where are the bells?
Well, yeah, the clock tower up there, and you can see it from here.
Just on the left, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's there's also bats up in there as well, and you see them flying around as soon as it warms up a bit. In fact, I've had a couple come in the house before, which is a bit scary, especially when you see the shadow against the roof,
and it feels quite urban
10 times
here.
Bigger.
You wouldn't really be thinking that you're going to be dealing with bats in a place like this.
Well, there's lots of in the churchyard here. There's I've seen deer, I've seen badgers. There's owls living there as well, and you can often hear them. And this time of year, you can hear all the birds as well as they start to nest and that. So I could hear an owl this morning, and then in another couple of weeks' time, you can hear them now actually. It gets really loud with all the birds as they make the nests and what have you.
And I'm just going to peer over here. As part of my research, and I had to say that Billy lent me a lot of books to help do a lot of reading for this. I think me and Billy have more books than Manchester Archives and Derbyshire Records together. We have a very detailed collection. But one of the, I was looking at interesting people of Tintwistle really, because obviously this was quite significant, as I'm going to get into in later episodes, with the mills around here. There was a lot of action here, there were a lot of people in the late 1800s. But one of the interesting people I spotted when I was researching poets in this area, there was a book put together by a Thomas Middleton, who curated a collection of poets from East Cheshire. And there was a chap just behind one of the trees that's kind of in the middle of the graveyard called Reverend A. Page. Oh. And he was vicar of this church for 27 years, I think it was. And he left, he went over to Rusholme to finish off his career. But when he died, He was buried here because the locals loved him so much. He was buried with his first wife, later his second wife and daughter joined him. But this was the place that was close to his heart because he helped hundreds of families during the cotton famine stay alive. They were starving.
I knew I'd learned something, Claire.
And the whole town turned out for his funeral. And it took me a while to find it, but it's just on the outer edge, just behind those trees. And I cleared a load of the moss away and you can see the words that are written on it. So there's lots of interesting things and interesting people, almost too many. And I understand that, this isn't a place where people can be buried anymore because the shop's full, as they say. But of course, recently there was Vivienne Westwood who had her funeral held here with her family. They, while some of her family members are here, she couldn't be buried here. So, it's
buried nearby, though.
Nearby, exactly. So, I'm going to climb back down. Obviously, you can walk through that churchyard, can't you? So if people that want to go and have a look, it's amazing.
That's all conservation area from this wall back up into the village.
And rightly so, if there's so much wildlife.
When we renovated the school, we had to drop the old roof, and in the attic space there were hundreds of old leaflets they were from missionaries, and they were all about converting people in Africa to Christianity. So I don't know what they were doing up there, but there were thousands of them, and old Bibles, all sorts of strange things. So they must have been sending missionaries out from the school, I think, to various places. I did give some of them to the vicar at the time. I don't know where they are these days, but they'd be quite interesting if you could find them and that. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we did get to see together was Tony at Tintwistle Parish Council opened the door and showed us the maps, didn't he, of some of the workings of the reservoir from the planners at the time for Manchester Corporation Works. And I always find that interesting because there obviously were a number of pubs along Woodhead Pass.
Absolutely, yeah. You could do a hell of a pub crawl between Tintwistle and Croydon, I believe.
Well, probably you need to, though, if you're on foot.
Yeah, or in a carriage or whatever. I think there's just one left now, isn't there? And then we've got the Liberal Club and the Conservative Club, and the Bull's Head still going. Yeah. If you walk around the village, you can see the site of several other pubs. There was the Black Bull as well, which was in the village, and then the Beehive, which was just along the main road. So that's another two that I know about.
Church Inn was at the top of New Inn, New Road, sorry, yep.
And we had a chippy, but that's gone now.
I find it really interesting because I think a lot of people who might be listening to this might be, I don't know, say from Glossop or Hadfield, and you do get kind of stuck in your place, even me at the bottom of the hill down in Hadfield, it's you've got everything that you need there, so you don't really come up the hill, do you? But I think as I've started to come up here more and meet you and meet other people, I've found that actually there's a lot more to Tintwistle than I thought.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning to you too.
Well, I first came here as a kid. I didn't live in Glossop or around here, but my dad used to come fly fishing on the resis. And that's my first kind of memory of the place, was probably 1975, something like that. My dad used to drive down and go fishing. And when I was walking around the resis, when I moved up here, I suddenly realised, it brought back the kind of childhood memories, and I realised where we'd been going at the time, fishing with my dad.
And it's a brilliant place. We're kind of facing towards Hadfield. We can see the mast on top of Bankswood. This is almost your view, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mouselow was an interesting area for archaeology. They say that at one point there was a castle. And then this whole section here where, the end of Bottoms Reservoir is, which, the sound of this place changes all the time, when there's water, when there isn't water, when there's water coming through the basin.
When the fountain goes here, you can hear that at night, That's actually from the old measuring bowl basin for they used to measure the amount of water that went down the Etherow, because they had to make sure there was enough water to drive the mills further downstream, I think. from what I've read. And that's, people often ask what the fountain is for, but that's basically what he was doing, was measuring the
Well, and
the volume
still
of water.
for.
Yeah, it
You
still
know,
goes, yeah.
as far as I know, United Utilities have to keep on top of
Yeah.
the river levels because, you know, if they don't replenish the river, they can get in trouble, is what I understand. But hopefully I'll find out more about that if I get to speak to some of the engineers.
I sometimes try to think or imagine what it was like before the resis, really. And it's there are one or two old photographs that I've seen, and you showed me a picture of this place from 52, which is the oldest picture I've ever seen of where I live. But trying to imagine that there's a huge mill in Bottoms Resi there is it's hard to imagine now. And there was just a little stream, just a river the River Etherow that drove the mill there, and it's hard to imagine that these days. But there are photographs, some really old photographs of that. Then obviously you look down across the valley towards Hadfield, and that was a huge mill down there as well, which I think burnt down.
Bridge Mill, yeah. So
Bridge
I'm
Mill,
going to be finding out more about that next week, actually, with Kate Raine from the Glossop Heritage Trust, who loves talking about mills.
Yeah.
What Kate doesn't know about the mills isn't worth knowing. But I mean, I suppose even the view of Hadfield, and actually, you know, the street where I live, the houses were about 1892.
Yeah.
So I found some of the maps going back to even 1907 of Hadfield. In fact, you lent me those, didn't you?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it looks like we were the new housing estate on the block.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is crazy now when you think of how much more housing, which is a different podcast, I suppose.
It's amazing to see when you see the pictures as well, even from like 1980 or whatever. None of these trees hardly were here. It's almost a bare landscape around the reservoirs, and now it's a massive of different trees and bushes and that which have grown. Even since I've been here in 20 years, these trees have, on Bank Lane have grown about 20 feet. I used to be able to see all the way down the valley, but now you can't see down that way. Yeah.
This Bank Lane, which we're just about to cross, so we're going to take a gate here and then jump over the other side.
Well, I think.
What was Bank Lane? Because it is actually the Peak District boundaries I discovered the other day.
Yeah, it's the National Park boundary. I don't know whether it's on this walk boundary as well. Is it the boundary walk? I presume it is.
It's
isn't it?
kind of. The gate that we're about to go through the opposite way, that's where the boundary walk comes through. But Bank Lane, it's almost like a very old lane. At the top, I understand there were some rumours about witches is where.
Well, the locals, as far as I'm aware, used to call it Bonky Brew, but I won't go into reasons why, but I'm not... I can use your imagination. It's a bit sad, really, because they've just tarmacked it. You can see all the old cobble sets as well.
Yes. Thanks very much for letting us pass. Cheers. Oh, there a couple of dog walkers go past. Morning. That's a very lively dog right there. So, sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years back it was still cobbled sets all the way down here, but they've just tarmacked it for some reason, which is a bit of a shame, but I guess it makes it safer for people.
So we're walking up Bank Lane then. God, it's a steep one, isn't it?
Do you know, it's funny that Vivian Westwood went to school here as a child, and then with the punk connections, if you look at the graffiti on the wall here, PIL, Public Image Limited, and the skids. So obviously with a punk connection, somebody's, it could have been her that did it, I don't know.
On the left hand side of the dry stone wall. Yeah, all kinds of different, buildings as we kind of reach the main road. I mean, it might get quite noisy with some of the traffic, but the old Sunday school building looks absolutely amazing. There's Chapel Brow as well.
This green gate here, Claire, is where the kids used to come into the school. So
I've
they come down
wondered,
Bank Lane, that goes up the steps, and that will be the way the village kids came in. You can actually see
gonna knock it. There you go.
You can actually see there's a bit of an engraving there.
What does it even say? PGS?
TPCS, which I think is Tintwistle Parish Church School, what somebody's carved in the stone.
Oh, that's a good guess, I reckon.
Might be wrong.
No, I reckon that's pretty good.
There's a date stone in the wall here as well somewhere. I don't know whether we can see it now.
See, and there's so many people who just walk past this wall and never really
It's got 1841
think
in
about
this
it.
wall somewhere.
It's like, where's Wally?
Sometimes I see it, sometimes not, but it is there, trust me.
So we're just going to get
There
to
we go.
the top. Oh, wow.
18,
We'll see if you can spot that if you walk in this area. I guarantee you probably won't. So I've got to ask you something. Although now I feel that I'm not sure you're the right person to ask because you're not properly local. What is this business about Tinsel versus Tintwistle versus Tintwhistle with an H? Which one is it? Is it only people who are local can say Tinsel?
Yeah. Tinsel, well, I guess so. If they put an H in it when they spell it, they're not from round here.
So, okay, right, so
It's
the
not,
best
it's
we can
definitely
all
not
do.
whistle
Right.
with an H.
But then some of the old maps have an H in.
Ah,
But that means they're just not from here either.
I think so, yeah. I don't know how it spells it on the 1897 map. I think it's as it is now.
Well, we're going to cross the top of Bank Lane and then go up a cobbled path, heading towards where the stocks are, to Bull's Head. And what we're going to try and do today, instead of walking around the reservoirs, are we good? Oh. We're going to go and kind of go almost above them and get a nice view of them. And if you are here, then you can have a Pixie's coffee to start and a pint at the Bulls to finish.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's what people like, isn't it, for a good walk? So, I mean, what I'm really fascinated about you, Billy, is you are as geeky as me in that you're just naturally curious and like, well, what's that? Where's that come from? I love the fact that when you go out walking or you're on your bike, you're looking at kind of weird bricks and weird stones and why are you so fascinated about where you live? Because actually there are a lot of people who don't know all this.
Well, I'm fascinated with the rocks, really. Millstone grit. It's great to climb on, which I used to do when I was younger with a couple of friends of mine. And I just find the moors as well are very quiet over this side. So you can walk around here and you don't see anybody all day. And it's a lot busier when you go over the Glossop side, Doctor's Gate and all those paths. This building here is the old workhouse, I think.
So it's just behind the Bull's Head? Well, it's pretty much where the
stocks are. This is a very old
are.
building, I understand. But I'm pretty sure it's the workhouse. It's marked on the map as well. You can see the original stone lintels and that in there. It's a really beautiful old building.
I do think there are a lot of wonderful buildings in Tintwistle.
Yeah, the next one's here, next to it. They're all weavers' cottages. You can see the three-story buildings there.
Yeah.
So they'd have the spinning or the weaving sheds on the top floor.
For the light, basically.
Yeah, well, that's basically where they'd work, up on the top there. So they, before the big mills were built, they were working in the top of the cottages, I guess.
Yeah.
And then right in front, at the top of the cobble street, that's the old manor house. That was all one big building, and that, I think, is probably the oldest kind of stone building in the village. And I think it used to be quite an important place then. It obviously wasn't in Derbyshire when that was built. It was in Cheshire, but it was quite a significant place really for the area. I can't remember the date it was built originally. I think it was 1580 or something like that. And then the cottages next to it, as you can see, they look very old as well.
Yeah.
I think that building there used to be one of the toll houses.
This is the usual one, to the left, isn't it? It's kind of got a pointed roof.
I think the old turnpike used to come through here.
Yeah.
And I think they took tolls there. And then obviously you've got the village green with the war memorial.
This is quite an important square, isn't it? I mean, in modern day, this is an area that's still used quite a lot.
Yeah.
What happens here today?
Well, obviously,
Remembrance?
Remembrance Sunday. I mean, it's astonishing the number of people who turn up. There's hundreds of people, and there's some quite recent names of people who passed away in Northern Ireland in the conflicts there, and back to World War One. Then obviously you've got the stocks here, which I don't think are original, but when you look at the old maps, and a couple of people have said, I think there was a police station actually built in this square. I'm not exactly sure where.
Well, they haven't got far to take the criminal then to the stocks, have they?
No.
And it is called Stocks Brow.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then obviously you've got the pub on the right-hand side, which is kind of the centre of the village, the old village really, the Bull's Head.
And I suppose it still is the centre of the village in some ways.
Well, it is for me. No doubt about that. And
I mean, I wonder how...
These guys have a festival every year as well, the Bull Fest as they call it, which is really good fun.
Yeah.
And they kind of, all this area is full of people, and they have bands on in the outside area here. And that's always good fun.
So the road we're walking on now is known as Old Road?
Yeah, this is Old Road.
So we've just come from New Road outside Pixies,
and
this is Old Road
that came through the village, yeah.
So is this the turnpike?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. You can see the pub where it used to be. There used to be a cottage here attached to it on the end, but that's now part of the pub.
I see, so this was a door.
Yeah.
I never noticed
that. The original door into the pub. Mm-hmm. You've got to mind your head if you're tall. And then you've got the actual bull's head on the wall there, which I think was moved from round the other side of the pub. If you look up there.
Yep, there is a bull.
There is a bull, yeah.
Wow.
So
it's a wood
really
pigeon agreeing.
Yeah.
This Old Road, I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it? What I really love is this idea about, retracing paths of people who for hundreds of years have walked this path.
Yeah.
You imagine, like, if it's 150 years ago, what would be wearing?
And there is another toll cottage where they used to take the fares from the carriages and the carts and that further along. And Chapel Brow here, this cobble street down to the right, there used to be a church just down there, which they knocked down. I'm not quite sure why, it's before I moved here. And there's a little graveyard down there where Vivienne Westwood's buried.
And we're getting a taste of what the view's going to be like. For these people live here, get this view all the time, but we're going to get a taste of that when we go to this memorial garden.
Everywhere as well, if you look carefully. I can't quite read what's up on the church there. You've got better eyesight than me, probably.
Looks like it could be 1832. Hiya. Hello.
Tintwistle.
Do you live in one of these houses here?
No.
Oh.
I'm just the cleaner for the church.
Oh, wow. What a job, though.
I know, yeah, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
Is it all renovated inside, or is it quite old?
It's quite modern. Yeah, it is. It's quite modern downstairs. It's very spacious.
And is it still a church?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
I can't read the sign up there.
1832, 1853. Rebuilt 1820 at the Jubilee. Established or enlisted 1853. Well, if anyone's got better eyesight, please get in touch. Well, we'll let you get on with your job. Oh, we're just going for a walk and talking about tales of Longdendale. So me and Billy are walking from Pixies to the Ebenezer Chapel and just stopping and looking at all the buildings.
I know. It's amazing. I don't think it's used enough, to be honest. No. It's got a fantastic function room upstairs. It's huge. And I think mums and tots use it. But
United Reformed Church now then, isn't it?
Yeah. You can have a... Do you want me to show you in?
Yeah, we'd love to have a little look.
Do you know I've never been in? I've been here 20 years, I've never been in.
Wow.
I shouldn't say that, should I?
I didn't even know it was here. I've lived 35 years here.
This is the point of doing a podcast, isn't it? We just find out. Yes, we'll find out. Right, we'll go in. Obviously, if you're listening, you might not be able to see this. The snowdrops are just outside as well. I love this. Warmer days are coming, Billy.
I know.
Right, walking through a big, huge green door. And yes, it is quite modern doors.
It's all the doors have been redone. I mean, I think it's probably like people that come that have, given their time and stuff.
Yeah.
The toilet's all modern.
Lovely red carpet here.
Nicely clean.
Yes, it is, yes. And we come in at the right time. Is that how this works? And now we're just walking into the church. So, yeah, it's definitely got a maroon colour to it, hasn't it? And it's really kind of quite warm and cosy for a church.
Yeah,
nice. Red
it's
kind of metal chairs.
Well, you can still imagine what it was like, can't you, back in the day and that, yeah.
There's always little clues, isn't there, like above the door we've just walked in,
well,
the windows.
I guess these are
the
wrought
pillars.
iron, aren't they?
And so you're opening a really old door here, and
wow,
look
look
at
how
that.
old that is.
It's a real A very old red door. I mean, we'll let you crack on with your job, but thank you so much for letting us come and peer in. Do you know what? Just whilst we're here, I'm going to take a photo. Right, well, we'll leave you be. What was your name, by the way?
It's Beth.
Beth, thank you so much. And now you're in a podcast. Well, I bet you never thought about that, did you, today? Thanks so much. We really appreciate it.
You'll get the royalties and that.
Right, let's continue our walk.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Take care, Beth. Bye.
There's another date stone up there on that cottage.
So we've just come out, so 1847, I reckon that says.
And the names of the people who built it, I guess. The initials HTA.
Yeah,
these
beautiful street this. I love this street. Yeah. Only because you told me about this place. Did I come up here the other day and I thought, I've got to bring the podcast here.
One of these buildings used to be the Black Bull pub, but I'm not sure which one it was. What
fascinates me, some of them that have kind of got the semicircle stones over the top. I do like this blue door though. It says, on this site, September the 5th, 1782, nothing happened. Someone's got a good sense of humour.
There's another date stone up there as well, 1725, I think that says. Well, this looks like a Georgian house, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And with an old barn on it. I suspect this was the pub.
Torside Barn, it says, and Highstone's house.
Yeah, I suspect this might have been the old pub, one of these buildings, because that looks like it's an old stable building there.
And so you would think if it's an old road, they'd put the horses there.
Exactly, yeah.
Quarryside Barn is on the left. Honestly, it's just, I'd never ever come up this road until you said to me, go for a walk down Old Lane, so I appreciate that.
This is the old well. So they still dress this at Easter, well dressing. And the local kids and that dress it, and it looks amazing.
I mean, well dressing is something. It's almost quite specific.
Thing, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's a Midlands thing.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's right now it's not the prettiest of wells, is it? But I imagine. I mean, there is a bit of water there, but I'm not sure I fancy drinking that.
This used to come down. I've traced the old pipelines down, and it used to come all the way down from Robinson Spring, which is up on Tintwistle now.
Yeah.
And you can see, if you follow it, you can see some of the old pipework there, and it actually comes all the way down to here and to another place a bit further down. So that would have provided the water before the reservoirs were built. The water came down from Robinson Spring for Tintwistle in this area.
And Robinson Spring actually is a place where I'm going to visit later on when I'm heading out with a chap called Alan Clark to talk about some of the plane crash sites that were up on Tintwistle now. You can find Robinson Spring actually on the Ordnance Survey map as well, so dig your OL1 out and have a look.
Yeah.
Well, we're walking pretty high up now and I can see Ebenezer Chapel is on the corner in front of us. Still all these dry stone walls with lovely lichen and different colours of moss all around, and on the right now you can start to see, higher up we can see the water, we can see my favourite peak naze in the distance, and actually at the moment it's quite quiet, it's not too noisy here. I always think with the Woodhead Pass how much traffic goes there now. I mean, one of my favourite little things I read in a book that you lent me was the turning which comes up towards Bull's Head. I'm not quite sure the road of it. It's a turning off the Woodhead Pass. It's now just got a sign which would tell you if Woodhead Pass is closed. But back in the day, there used to be a man in uniform who would salute every car that passed to go down Woodhead Pass. Could you imagine if they were doing that now?
I'd like that kind of job now, Claire, to be honest. That would suit me down to the ground.
But now, it really shows how things change, because he probably only saluted, I don't know, 10, 20 cars a day?
I think it was busier than what people think.
Yeah.
It was the main road between Cheshire over into South Yorkshire, and I think the old Salt Road came through as well originally. So it was quite busy in those days. Yeah. People think it's a very quiet place, but
no, this is exactly what Roger was saying to us yesterday, and it always has been. So beautiful old cottages here, they really are great. And then we're coming up to where there's a stone which says 119, and just beyond these higher stone walls is Ebenezer Chapel, which is now a place where people live, so it's not one that you can go and wander up to the front door and walk around. But it's the wall is like really high. I mean, it's even higher than Billy, put it that way. I mean, I know that high for me is not that high, but you know, these black kind of iron gates, and then it says, we just stand at the bottom of the gates now, 121, Little Abbey is the marking on it, the same kind of pattern that was in the United Reformed Church, actually, above the door, and then Ebenezer Chapel erected for the Wesleyan Methodists 1830.
And then the cross on the top's amazing, isn't it?
It is beautiful. And I mean, we're not going to go in because it's where somebody lives, but we can see there are gravestones in their front garden. But let's finish up just across the way here, because this is a place that I don't think many people know about, and it's just the best place to sit. I mean, it's a bit windy and a bit cold today, but I imagine to watch the sunrise or sunset or something must be quite nice here.
Yeah, it's a lovely view.
You could bring a cold drink.
I have to say, during lockdown, people did come up here to sit outside quite a bit.
So we're going through a little gate and there's 2 benches. It's all
we were allowed
paved.
out.
Yeah. Thorns
Nice
shaven,
place to come.
it says here, and there are some memorials for bikers, because the other side of this wall, just down the embankment, is where the Woodhead passes. So it's
This
quite...
stone here, this Tórshavn is the capital of the Faroe Isles, and I often wondered, why this stone was there, and I think it was Alan Clark who wrote the aircraft wrecks book that Claire's talking to. He said he thought it was from some old servicemen that put the stone in, who were stationed in the Faroes during World War II. I think the British fleet was kind of up there around that area. And a lot of people served up in the Faroe Isles at the time, and he reckons maybe those guys put the stone in. Some guys from Tintwistle served up there, and they put the stone as a memorial or a reminder of what happened up there in the war. I've never found any other explanation, but that makes sense.
I love the view that's in front of us, so you start to hear some of the traffic is passing, but down on below us is the old engine sheds, which is where I started my walk with Matt the other day. You may have heard us walking around Bottoms along towards Valehouse Reservoir, and now we can see the old engine sheds, and it really does look so straight, like, you know, you can imagine there, you know, being these huge trains kind of going in and out of there 150 years ago when they were building the reservoirs. This was the railway line which built the reservoirs, not the same one as the Longdendale. But again, even the Longdendale Trail, which is the old passenger line that went from Manchester to Sheffield, you can see whenever I've kind of dabbled in a bit of painting, and I enjoy drawing the shapes of all the walls and the fields, but particularly the tree line, because the tree line is the giveaway for where the Longdendale Trail is, which I'll be walking a lot for this podcast.
Yeah, right in the far distance, if you look right across to the south, the furthest hill that you see is Kinder Corner, and then
and the horizon,
and then then the one before that is Wormstones and Mill Hill. And then to your left, obviously, as you said before, you can see Peaknays. And then Brammer Edge as well is the steep escarpment to the left.
The round
as well.
bit, basically.
There's an aircraft crash up there, which Alan will tell you about as well. And then Devil's Elbow, which I'm sure you've got some stories about, Claire.
Oh yeah, I'll reveal that. It's been great to kind of walk this with you and see it through your eyes. And you learnt a few new things.
Absolutely.
I can't believe that I taught you or got you into some places. If you don't ask, you don't get, do you? But that is the point of, I suppose, this podcast, is being curious and saying, how you doing? What's in there?
I'm looking forward to some of the others, especially Alan's as well, the plane crash ones I'm really interested in.
Yeah. Well, look, we will put some pins of some of the things we've talked about on this podcast on the digital map, which you can find online at longdendaletales.co.uk. And that kind of just about rounds up the kind of walk and talks with the guests for this week. But tomorrow we'll have a story told by the actress Cordelia Howard, and then Sunday a soundscape as well from the other end of the reservoirs. So do make sure you come back. Plenty more episodes for us to get into. Get a cup of tea or maybe put your walking boots on and join us wherever you are. Take care. Bye bye.